If an applicant ever says, I'll pay the whole year up front, that's not the jackpot, that's a warning. I've been a landlord for over 25 years, and the tenants that cost the landlords the most, they're the ones that you should have never given the keys to. Either those tenants looked a lot better than they actually were, or that landlord missed issues that they should have seen coming and handed over the keys anyway. My system, it catches both, and I'm giving you my entire tenant screening system today. The written criteria, the phone screening, the red flags, and the verification trick that I use to catch a tenant in a lie before I give them the keys to my property. That being said, let's chat with Chatto. This screening system, it protects you before you give bad tenants the keys to your property. That one decision to give those keys to a bad tenant is going to absolutely destroy your cash flow for the year and cost you more money than almost any other mistake you can make. Section 1, written criteria. First off, written criteria spell out exactly who you're looking for. So when you find that tenant that's a fit for your property, you're going to be able to accept them with no hesitation. And if they're not a fit, you're going to know it and be able to move on to a more qualified tenant. Written criteria, they also protect you under the Fair Housing Act. That written criteria that you put together of non-discriminatory standards, someone meets those standards, they're in. It's easy. They don't meet those standards, they're not in. And you move on and you find an actual tenant that's well suited for your property. These standards protect you from accepting a bad tenant, especially as a vacancy might start to drag on a little bit. What exactly are your written criteria? Well, a starting point is income, and it depends on the area that you're in, but a lot of landlords, they look for that income that the tenant is bringing in to be at least 3 times the rental amount to make sure that they have enough money to pay the rent and their monthly expenses. The second big criteria, that's credit score. That's going to show you how well the person handles their money, and you need to figure out where you need to be. And sometimes it depends on the area, and sometimes it depends on the income level of your rentals, but a good credit score is very important. What are you going to accept? Where's the line? Are you going to accept 600? Are you going to accept 650? Whatever it is, you need it in your written criteria. Third criteria might have something to do with eviction history. Have they been evicted, or have somebody filed for eviction on them in the last 36 months? That might be a no-go for you. The fourth potential criteria would be like, hey, did they fill out the application in full? A fifth potential criteria that you might want to include is no lying on the application. If they lie about something on their application, that's an automatic disqualification. And the sixth potential criteria that you might want to include in your written criteria is reserves. Do they have money saved up in reserves for if something goes wrong, they're still going to be able to pay their rent until they get that situation resolved? I can tell you right now that every time I let a tenant slide on the criteria, it has come back to bite me. Every time I just somehow thought about it and justified, well, you know what, I think it's okay even though they didn't meet this criteria. It always comes back to bite me. So make sure your criteria is strong and that you stick to it. Early on in my career, I had a rental agent who came to me with some tenants, and she was pushing for them because she obviously wanted to make her commission. And I sat down with these tenants and I had a conversation with them. And there were 4 adults. I ended up believing them, and I ended up with a horrible tenancy. These 4 adults were not able to come up with the money that they needed every single month, and it ended up dragging out, costing me over $10,000 because I was Mr. Nice Guy and I gave unqualified tenants the keys to my property. I'll link that complete story in the description below. Section 2, the phone screening. There are 5 questions that you need to ask every single tenant during the phone screening process. The first question, when do you want to move? That question is going to clarify a lot of things. If you have a property that you're looking to rent for, let's say August 1st, and they say, hey, I'm looking to move in October, it's probably not going to be a fit. The second question, why are you moving? After you ask that question, you need to be quiet. You need to ask that question and shut up and give them a chance to answer. Give them a chance to talk, listen to what they say, and then be quiet a little bit more and let them continue the story. There's a lot of gold that you're going to find with them answering that question and you keeping your mouth shut. The third question is, how many people will be living there? This is extremely important because certain areas have occupancy limits and your property might not even be a fit for them and you're wasting everybody's time. The fourth question that you want to ask them is, what type of property are you looking for? They saw an ad on Zillow or wherever they saw your advertisement and they saw a few pictures of your property, but they don't know your property. You know your property. And asking that question and letting them say like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, You might find out that, hey, they need a big backyard. Okay, well, this property barely has a backyard, so it might not be a fit for you. You might end up telling them, like, hey, I know this is a 3-bedroom house, but the 1 bedroom in the back is really small. And they might say, oh, wow, we really want 3 big bedrooms, so this might not work for us. Those are just the type of things, like finding out what they're looking for in a property and making sure that your property fits what they're looking for is going to save everybody a lot of time, effort, and energy. The 5th question that you're going to ask them is this going to be a problem? And you're going to use this to pre-screen them. You're going to say things like, hey, this property is renting for $2,000 a month. We require the income of our applicants to be at least 3 times that. Is that going to be a problem? And if they're not making $6,000 a month, they're going to say, ooh, I might not want to apply for this because I'm not going to get it because I don't meet the criteria. You might turn around and say to them, hey, we're looking for tenants that have at least a 600 credit score. Is that going to be a problem? And then they might turn around and say, oh man, my credit's shot, this, that, and the other. You're saving everyone a lot of time, effort, and energy from going to show the house, filling out an application, paying for an application fee when they know they're not qualified for your property. This phone screening is so important because you're a busy person, and if you're running around showing properties to unqualified tenants, you're just wasting your time. Section 3, the showing. After you get done with that phone screening and you now have a tenant who actually knows that the property that you have is what they're looking for, and you actually know that they pretty much meet the criteria that you asked them about, it's time to get an appointment and come show them the house. So the first thing is, number 1, when you have an appointment to show the house, all occupants that are going to be living there need to show up. Not just one person. Everyone who's going to live there needs to show up because you want to meet them. You want to see who's moving into your property. Number 2, you're going to ask that tenant, if let's say your appointment is tomorrow at 4 o'clock, you're going to say, hey, I need you to text me by 3 o'clock and say, yeah, hey, you know what? I'm going to be there at 4, right? To see, because number 1, you don't want to go and show up for an appointment at 4 o'clock and they're not there. It's a waste of time, effort, and energy. Number 2, it gives you an idea to see how they operate as tenants. How do they show up? If they say, yeah, I'm going to text you at 3 o'clock, do they actually do it? It kind of gives you a glimpse into what the relationship is going to look like. So now you have the appointment set. They text you an hour before. Great. Now you're there waiting for them. You're obviously probably going to be a little early. It's usually best to be a little early. Now the question becomes, what time do they show up? Do they show up a little bit early? Do they show up right on the dot? Are they 10 or 15 minutes late? Their punctuality says something about how they're potentially going to be as tenants. Another thing you want to look at when they come to the property is how they present themselves. Like taking a look at their car, everything. If you look at their car and the inside is a complete mess and a complete disaster, chances are they're going to keep your house on the inside like a complete mess and a complete disaster. Are the kids running around like crazy and jumping all over the place and being disrespectful? If they're doing that while you're there, what are they going to do when you're not there? And then lastly, like as they're going around the property, what's the vibe you're getting from them as far as whether or not they actually like it? Are they complaining about everything? Are they saying, oh, I don't like the way this kitchen is set up. Oh, I don't like the layout of this room. Because if they're not happy with it, they're probably not going to stay long and it might not be the house for them. Now I'm going to get into some of the red flags that you need to watch for. And the first red flag that you want to be aware of is them throwing their previous landlord under the bus. If they're throwing their previous landlord under the bus, it could be that their previous landlord was a bad landlord. Could be that they were a bad tenant. Who knows? But if they're throwing the previous landlord under the bus and you give them keys to your property, probably very shortly after that, they're going to be throwing you under the bus. So it's something to be very careful about. It's not necessarily a no-go, but it's just something to think about as you're going through this process. The second red flag that I want to talk about is when you're asking them questions that they are evasive, right? That they're vague in their answers and that they're inconsistent. As you start this process, every time you talk with them, you document everything. And if the story changes, that's potentially a problem, right? That's potentially an issue. So just something to be aware of as you're going through the process. Is this potential tenant that I'm talking to evasive, inconsistent, vague, and have a story that's changing? The third red flag that I want to talk about is when you come up with a prospective tenant that is a negotiator. The negotiator is always difficult. If that negotiator, even before they see the property, is trying to get you down on the rent price, that's potentially an issue. If they're trying to negotiate right out of the gate and argue over things, it's probably going to be a picture of what the entire tenancy is going to look like. So just keep that in mind. Number 4, and this one's absolutely a non-negotiable, is when you have a tenant that comes up to you with cash, they want to pay an entire year upfront for the entire lease. That to me is definitely a no-go. Every single time I've seen a landlord do that, at the end of that year, they've destroyed the property. They haven't because they haven't paid anything a year. They just gave you that bulk sum of cash up front, which seems like a big win. At the end of the year, that property is destroyed, and now they don't have any income to pay in the 13th month. Forget it. The 5th red flag is very similar. It's that person that has cash in hand, and they want to bypass the whole process and say, hey, here's your security deposit. Here's the first month rent. I'm ready to move in tomorrow. Give me the keys. You do not want to get involved in that because you're never going to see another penny out of them. You're going to give them those keys. You're going to move them in, and you're going to get hurt. You need to say, nope, can't do that. We have an entire process you need to go through. You need to fill out an application. I need to verify your employment. I need to verify everything on the application, and I need to approve you by my screening criteria. Do not allow anyone to pressure you to get the keys to your property. Section 4, verify everything. So you had the phone screening. You had the appointment. They showed up to the appointment. They said, yes, I'm interested in the property. Let me fill out an application. So what you need to do is you need to make sure you get them an application and that they fill it out in its entirety. And when they fill it out in their entirety, you're going to need a copy of their IDs. You're going to need supporting documentation like W-2s, recent pay stub. And the application needs to include a place where they can sign to show that, hey, you're authorized to run credit and background checks. You can use companies like NTN, National Tenants Network, and sometimes, depending on if you have a property management software, it has it built in. And when you get that and it comes back, you need to call the previous landlord. Not only do you need to verify the current landlord, it's more important that you actually verify the previous landlord. Because if this tenant is problematic, their current landlord may give them a glowing review because they want them out of their property. But the previous landlord, that person, they're already done with them and they're going to give you the honest truth. When you're calling up the current landlord or even the previous landlord, do what you can to verify that you're calling the right person. What you want to do is get something wrong. You want to call them up and you want to say, hey, John Smith said he's currently a resident at your property and he's paying, now you might know that the rent is $1,500 a month. You might say, hey, and he's paying $1,400 a month. Now, if that person is actually the owner, they're going to say, no, he pays $1,500 a month. I'm like, oh, okay, I got that wrong. But the reverse of that would be if you're calling up maybe one of their friends who's posing as the landlord and you say, hey, he's renting this property for $1,400 a month. Is that right? She goes, oh yeah, that's right. They're great. They pay on time all the time. Why did that person not catch that the rental amount was wrong? Landlords usually know how much they're getting in rent. So by getting details wrong during that interview with the current or previous landlord, you're able to verify that they actually are the landlord who you're supposed to be talking to. The other thing you want to do is check public records. If they say they used to live or they currently live at 123 Main Street, look it up on public record. Is that the person that's on the application who they said the landlord was? Google the phone number that they gave you. Who does that come back to? Is it belong to that person or does it belong to somebody else? Do what you can to actually verify you're speaking to the real landlord. You also need to verify employment. Now, when you do that, the tenants usually write a phone number on the application. Don't call that phone number first. Google the company that they work for and call the main number. Make sure that you're talking to the right person because, again, that phone number could go to their friend who's going to give them rave reviews. And lastly, no matter what, Google your applicant. Look them up on Facebook, look them up on Instagram, because you might be surprised at what you find. We had a tenant who looked like the ideal tenant. This guy was the perfect tenant. And we moved him into our property. He was in his 60s. We moved him into our property, the second floor of a duplex. Next thing you know, he's got a girlfriend in her 20s living with him, addicted to drugs, causing all sorts of issues at the entire property, and it became a mess, and we had to go through an eviction, and it cost us a lot of money. And we would have seen a lot of the red flags if we had just Googled him. We would have been so clear as not to accept this person as a tenant, but we didn't do that. And now we added that to our procedures. Google the person that wants to be your tenant, because you're going to find out a lot about them. On a side note, you need to make sure that all of your criteria are within the legal bounds, and you need to make sure that anything that you're checking against is something you're legally allowed to check against. I know in New Jersey, we are not allowed to check a criminal background until that person passes the rest of our criteria. And there's different rules in different areas. So again, this is another reason why you need to make sure you get involved in the local real estate community and with local attorneys and find out what's actually legal in your area. So let's recap. You have your written criteria. You start the process. You do the phone screening, they pass that. You do the walkthrough, they pass that. You do the application, and they meet all of your written criteria through that application. They pass, they're in, you've done your job. It's a system that allows you without stress to pick the best tenant for your property. On the next episode, I'm going to show you what happens next, move-in day, and how to handle that and get things started off on the right foot. I've created a rental property analyzation tool, and it's linked below at chatwithchato.com. Plus, I'd love for you to subscribe because the next episode is coming out soon. As always, I appreciate you watching this video. Now go out there and make something happen.